I'm in fact now joined by Jayant Krishna. He's a senior fellow at CSIS and the former CEO of the UK India-British Council to discuss what the new Labour government will mean for India-UK ties. Good evening, Mr. Krishna. Thank you very much for joining us. To begin with, Mr. Krishna, even before the results had come out, there was evident effort from Keir Starmer to mend Labour ties with India. Now, there was, of course, the temple visit that's been talked about and several other events that were aimed at wooing the diaspora. Do you think that we will see more of this in the initial days of the new Labour government?
Yeah, I would presume so. If you look at historically, Labour Party is not known to have had a very good relationship, especially on the business and industry front with India. But things are very different this time. In fact, Labour manifesto itself talks about a new strategic relationship with India. They've also especially talked about the free trade agreement, for which 13 rounds of negotiations have already happened, and finally finalizing it and negotiating it and settling it is their agenda. And they have talked about collaboration with India in various areas like technology, like security, like education, climate change, and so on and so forth. So I have every reason to believe that the Labour Party, headed by Keir Starmer this time, and with David Lammy as the Foreign Secretary, I think things would be very, very different. And let's not forget, a lot of spade work has already happened as far as the free trade agreement is concerned. And, there are still some contentious issues like mobility of people, especially of India in the UK, and the import duty concessions. So I think I'm sure in the next few months' time, it would happen. And as Boris Johnson had earlier said, that will happen in the year 2022 by Diwali. It didn't happen. But by this Diwali, there is absolutely every chance that the FTA between UK and India would see the light of the day.
Right, absolutely. No, you mentioned the FTA. It was in in their manifesto as well. And David Lammy, in fact, said that many Diwalis have come and gone, and we haven't really seen that FTA being formalized. But do you think there will be certain stumbling blocks in this as well? Because there is immigration that, for India has been an issue. But apart from that as well, there are other sticking points.
Yeah, absolutely. Not that everything is sorted. Otherwise, it would have been signed with Rishi Sunak himself during his time. And, especially when he came to India and met Prime Minister Modi during G20. And more recently, when the two leaders met, in Italy for G7, things could have been close to closure. But there are issues. For example, India has been asking for a greater access of Indians in the UK, especially in the information technology and IT-enabled services area, as well as healthcare area. And what India says is that we don't want any special favor. What we want is that the Mode 4 of GATS, which is the General Agreement on Trade and Services, which talks about under the WTO regime, which talks about intercompany movement of people, that should be respected by UK. And India has also been asking for market access for goods at nil customs duty for certain categories which are of interest to India. On the UK side, the main contentious issues which are left are cut in import duty, especially, and for some categories in food and drinks like Scotch whisky, like confectionery, chocolates, meat, as well as some non-food and drinks items like electric vehicles. These are the kind of concessions cut in import duty which UK has been expecting India to give. But I think it should happen because, at that time, when earlier, 14 years back, when Labour Party was there, it was a very, very different regime, very different era. India was not all that strong a player in the international market. Today, India is the fifth largest, economy. The size of our GDP is higher than that of UK itself. And by purchasing power parity, we are already the third largest country. So no country can afford to miss that. Although today, the kind of, the trade, bilateral trade, the quantum of that trade between the two countries is still not as high, just about $30 billion, and which makes India the 12th largest trading partner for UK. But I'm sure in years to come, and with FTA happening, I think I have no doubt that India would become the fifth largest among the top five trading partners of UK, and even our ranking in terms of India's trade with the UK would also improve. That's my feeling.
Also, Mr. Krishna, do you think that India will have to closely watch the Labour Party stand on Kashmir, given what happened in 2019 and Jeremy Corbyn's very public stance at that? Is that and should that be a concern?
So, but as I said earlier, historically, Labour Party is not known to be very, very close to India. And especially if you look at the two main parties, the BJP, which rules in a coalition system in India, as well as the Congress. Labour is historically known to be more friendly with the Congress historically. If you look at some of the utterances, you've talked about Kashmir, they have talked about minorities' interest, they have talked about human rights, respect to human rights in India, and so on and so forth. But I think, lots of things you can say when you're in opposition. But once you are running the government, it's a very different responsibility. And the fact is now BJP is there for the third term. Although a coalition government, I'm sure all that would change, and the two governments would work hand in hand as partners in progress. I have no doubt about that. Given the landslide victory the Labour Party has had, I'm told it's very, very close to Tony Blair's 418 MPs, seats that they got in 1997. So I think with power comes a lot of responsibility, and the earlier utterances that they've had against India would disappear. And there are enough signals of that happening in the election manifesto, in various platforms where Keir Starmer and David Lammy have spoken. And I'm sure there's all good stuff to look forward to, because they also want to show early progress on that front. And, FTA and other things are bound to happen.
So we're hoping that the relationship does move ahead and quickly at that, at least the FTA. Thank you very much for joining us this evening.